Welcome back to the Eerie Fairy Tales. My name is Letty, and welcome to those of you who came over from Charlie's Chapters. I love her channel, and she recently gave me a shout out. I so appreciate that. If you are not subbed to her, I will link her channel below. Please go check out her channel. You will love her videos, I promise. So today I have a really fun video. I have 9 classic novellas or books under 200 pages that you can get read in a day. I also have 9 sci-fi novellas or books under 200 pages and also 13 horror novellas or books under 200 pages, but I wanted to keep them separate videos, so this one is strictly going to be classics. But don't worry, my fellow horror lovers, there's going to be horror in this stack as well as a sci-fi stack, so I got you covered in each of these videos. I was originally going to do them all together in one video, and I thought, no, I'm just going to split them up. It'll make it easier to film, easier to edit, and then that way if somebody's more interested in one genre versus the other, they can, pick and choose what they want to watch. But like I said, there's going to be horror in every category. A quick couple things before we jump into those recommendations. I recently posted my book of the month unboxing for December and my check-in going over the books that I have read versus the ones I still have to read, and I totally forgot a book that I read. I don't know how I did this. I even looked through my stack, okay, I'm dropping books now. I even looked through I looked through all my books like 4 times to make sure I didn't miss anything, and of course I did. But then today was it yesterday? Oh, it was yesterday. I was watching Amy Noel's video. I'll link her channel below if you're not subbed to her. And I love her videos, and she reads mostly horror, but she recently posted her anticipated reads list. And on that, she mentioned this book. And I was like, oh yeah, it made me realize I totally forgot to mention that. Oh, and the reason why she hasn't mentioned in her anticipated reads list, even though she reads primarily horror, she wanted to kind of dabble outside her normal comfort zone and read that. So I was like, oh, that's so fun. You're going to read this fun book. That's The Adventures of Amina El-Sarafi by Shannon Chakraborty. I even tabbed it a little bit. I don't know how I forgot I read this. I read this the month it came out in March of this year, and also, this is going to be a series, and book 2 is supposed to come out next year, so I'm going to add that to my anticipated releases list, and I'm going to bump one out because I also found out today, I was watching Erin Megan's channel. I'll link her channel down below as well. She reads primarily thriller and horror, I think some romance too, but I watch her just for like the thriller and the horror books. And she mentioned that she read Hex in November. She said some things about it, and I was like, oh, the book Oracle by Thomas Old Huvelt is actually the second book, and Hex is the first book. Now, I was never interested in reading that book. I had heard mixed reviews here and there, but it was never really on my radar. It was never really anything I thought about reading. But then I thought, oh, well, maybe I'll read it just because it's the first book before Oracle, because that one sounds interesting enough. But then the things that Erin said in her review, I was like, okay, no, I don't want to read that. So I'm going to take Oracle off my anticipated releases list and put the second book for Amina El-Sarafi on that. I don't know what it's going to be called. So far, it just looks like it's called book number 2. So anyway, very excited for that. This is a fun high seas adventure. Oh, and if I totally spaced that I did say this in my my book of the month check-in, sorry about that. I don't want to go back and watch it. I don't want to go back and watch it. Anyway, I have a feeling I forgot it, so that's why I'm including it here. Okay, on to the 9 classic books that you can read in a day. And the first one is Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde by Robert Louis Stevenson. This is 92 pages, a nice little short one, and that is the author of Treasure Island. The cover's pretty cool, I like that. And in this, we follow the curious case of Dr. Jekyll, who is a kindly scientist, but at night he turns into Mr. Hyde. And so this is a really good study of man's dual nature, as well as an immortal tale of suspense and terror. It's been described as a fable that's closer to poetry than just ordinary prose fiction. And if you haven't read this classic, I highly recommend it. I think it's always good to read the source material for common references that we hear in pop culture and out in the world and society. You always hear of the Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, the good and evil, somebody having almost like a split personality. So if you've read this, please let me know what you think. And my second classic book that you can read in a day is Lord of the Flies by William Golding, and this is 192 pages. I did read this in September, so that will be in my wrap-up linked below, so you'll have all my full thoughts in that. But in this, we follow a group of young boys, basically ages 4 to 12, and they're on a plane. It crashes, all the adults die, and so basically they're fending for themselves. They end up having a couple opposing forces, and one side really wants to be saved. They are trying to keep a fire going so they can get rescued, to let the smoke, like a smoke signal. And the other side is like, you know what? We kind of like not having adults here telling us what to do and giving us consequences for our bad behavior. So they kind of rebel in that aspect, and it escalates, turns into madness, mayhem, murder, and the ending is bittersweet, in my opinion. If you haven't read this classic, I highly recommend it. There's a lot of books that take this on as inspiration. I am thinking of a couple in particular. Oh no, 3 actually. There's Battle Royale. I have not read that yet. Also Fantastic Land, which I have read, and that is literally fantastic. Highly recommend it. And I don't remember which wrap-up. What month? Oh, July. I think I read that in July. So if that's correct, I'll link my July wrap-up. And then the third book is Lord of the Fly Fest. I'll link the review that I did for that book down below. Anyway, those are the 3 books: Battle Royale, Fantastic Land, and Lord of the Fly Fest. Those 3 books off the top of my head have all referenced this book. Oh, this isn't 192 pages, this is 190. Now, this book is 192 pages, and that's The Phantom of the Opera by Gaston Leroux, and this is translated from the French. This one I did read, however, I read it last year, so I don't have a review of it, but this is really good. I really enjoyed it. In this, we follow Eric, a tormented and disfigured creature who has made his home in the cellar of an opulent opera house. And this is where he can indulge in his great passion for music, which is a substitute for the love and emotion that is denied him because of his ghastly appearance. Then one day he encounters Christine, whom he trains in secret to become a great singer, and his passionate obsession with a beautiful woman who is beyond his reach is absolutely doomed and leads to a dramatic, tragic finale. And I read this while listening to Phantom of the Opera music in the background, so if you're going to read this, I highly recommend doing that. The next classic book you can read in a day is The Stranger by Albert Camus, and this is translated from the French, and this is 123 pages. Oh, we have movement. Can you see him back there? Oh, I always got to keep my eye on him because he likes to mess with things. Anyway, in The Stranger, we're in 1940s in a French colony in North Africa, and we follow a young shipping clerk who lives an ordinary but detached life. His mother passes away. He goes to her funeral, but he doesn't really seem affected by this at all, or anything at all, really. He gets roped into helping people with questionable things, but he doesn't really question it himself. He even shoots a man for no reason. He is a fascinating and frustrating character, and this novel explores the meaning, or rather the non-meaning of life, according to Camus. This is definitely a classic that I recommend everybody read. I did read this in August, so I'll have that wrap-up linked below if you want to hear my full thoughts. And the next classic book you can read in a day is The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. This is 180 pages. You may have seen the movie, and if you've seen the movie, maybe you would like to read the book as well. This is set during the Jazz Age in New York, and it tells the tragic story of Jay Gatsby, a self-made millionaire, and his pursuit of Daisy Buchanan, a wealthy young woman. And he loved her in his youth, however, now there's a problem because she's married. This book explores themes of wealth, love, and the corruption of the American dream. It also shows that the past cannot be repeated and that people should just move forward with their life. This next classic that you can read in a day is one of my 5-star all-time favorites. I even remember the day I got it at the bookstore. I was at Barnes & Noble to get 3 books in particular. I found the first one. I couldn't find the next 2, and I thought, you know what? I'll just go browsing around. And I got Middle Game over in the fantasy section. That was also a 5-star all-time favorite read. And right when I started reading this book, first page, I was like, this is going to be a 5-star. I need to get this right now. And I was right. And that is We Have Always Lived in the Castle by Shirley Jackson. It's 146 pages. I got the Penguin Deluxe version, so the really cool cover, front and back. It has the deckled edges here. Now, I read this book last year, so unfortunately I don't have a review of it, but like I said, absolutely loved it. I've only read her other book, The Haunting of Hill House. I read that in October, I want to say. I'll link that wrap up below in case you missed it. And that one was a little disappointing. I may have to reread it. Maybe it'll be better the second time around. But anyway, this I absolutely loved. In this, we follow 2 young adult sisters, and they've basically become lepers in their small town. Not literally, but just like social outcasts because of something that happened at a family dinner about 6 years prior. Like half their family ended up dead. One of them gets accused of murder. So it goes from there. Now this definitely has like an unsettling undercurrent. I always describe it as like a quiet creep. It's not necessarily like in your face horror, but it's just always like something seems off. Like it kind of seems normal at first, but then things kind of seem off here and there, and you're wondering like, what else is going on here? And yeah, there's definitely something going on, and the ending is very interesting. If you have not read this, I highly recommend it. If you read The Haunting of Hill House and you thought it maybe was a little boring, because I have heard that critique of it, you may like this one a little bit better, so I'd say give this one a chance. And the next classic you can read in a day is perfect for this time of year, and that is A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. This is 128 pages. I am planning on reading this pretty soon here. I'm going to be listening to the audiobook while I do a particular Christmas related activity, so hopefully that video will be coming out soon. Then I'll have my review of it in my December wrap-up. That will be coming out probably the first week of January. And this is the tale of the infamous Ebenezer Scrooge. He is a miserable miser, wicked and self-absorbed. He profits off his impoverished community, literally financially benefiting from their suffering. And he also pays his employee, Bob Cratchit, measly wages. He's visited by the spirit of his former employee, Jacob Marley, who is attempting to get him to change his ways. He is visited by 3 spirits, the ghost of Christmas past, present, and future. He then embarks on a transformative journey of self-awareness and redemption. We have a little visitor. Princess Penny. That's Penny Dreadful. Penny Dreadful, I named her after the Penny Dreadfuls, if you're familiar. Back in the Victorian times, they sold spooky stories, like in little pamphlet kind of things. Stories about like ghosts, ghouls, goblins, witches, werewolves, vampires, that kind of thing. And they cost a penny, and they're dreadful stories, so they call them the Penny Dreadfuls. So that's why she's named Penny. Now we have kitty number 2, little Fritz, Fritz Wiki. Now that they're awake from their naps, hopefully they'll let me do this without too much disruption. And the next classic book you can read in a day is one of my favorite all-time stories ever since I was a child. I used to watch this movie literally every single day. I don't know how my parents didn't get sick of this. I mean, maybe they did, I don't know, but I watched it every day. I still love this movie, and it's really cool to be able to read the original story. I'm about halfway through it, so I've been working on it a while, but I just have so many books to read, so I'll finish it eventually. But that is The Wonderful Wizard of Oz by L. Frank Baum, and this is 190 pages. And this edition has all the original artwork, the original illustrations. It's really cute. I love this story so much, and I'm sure we're all familiar with this, but just to go over it quickly. In this, we follow a young Kansas farm girl named Dorothy, who is an orphan girl but lives with her aunt and uncle. One day, she's inside the house with her dog Toto, and they get swept up in a tornado, and she ends up landing on the Wicked Witch of the East, and basically kills her. And the Good Witch of the North tells her this, thanks her, and gives her the shoes that the witch was wearing. And she says, if you need to get back home, all you do is follow the yellow brick road. So she follows that path, and along the way she meets and makes new friends. The Scarecrow, who is missing a brain, the Tin Man, who is missing his heart, and the Cowardly Lion, who is missing his courage. So on to the Emerald City they go to meet the wizard, who can grant them all these things that they're missing. However, the Wicked Witch of the West has found out about this and attempts to sabotage their journey. Oh, and fun fact, in the book, Dorothy's slippers are silver. They only made them red or ruby for the movie because of their Technicolor technology. It's like they wanted to show off the Technicolor that they had. But also, I think it would make it stand out a little bit more because silver on a yellow brick road probably wouldn't have as much contrast, so they did the ruby slippers. So this is a really fun classic, like I said, childhood favorite. And if you also grew up watching the movie, maybe you would like to read the book. And the last classic that I have for you that you can read in a day is another childhood favorite of mine. I still love it to this day. I always will. And that is Alice's Adventures in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll. And this is 159 pages. And I do have a few editions of this, but I wanted to show this one in particular. This is illustrated by Camille Rose Garcia, and it's kind of like a gothic style. It's really cool. I love this so much. I'll show you a few of the illustrations inside. This tells a story of a young girl named Alice who falls down a rabbit hole, and she follows the white rabbit who seems to always be late for something. And she finds herself in a fantastical and nonsensical world with very strange creatures. And there is the famous scene of the caterpillar smoking hookah on a mushroom. You can check that out. I love that style so much. And she meets the Cheshire Cat. And she meets the March Hare and the Mad Hatter at the Mad Tea Party. I think this is my favorite scene. Why is a raven like a writing desk? And then she sees playing cards, painting white roses red. And then she meets the Red Queen, or the Queen of Hearts. And the Queen accuses Alice of doing something she didn't do, and so she has to run away as quick as she can to get back home. Isn't that artwork so cool? I love it so much. I would love to draw some of this actually and make some art for my room. You know what's funny is this is kind of a similar story to The Wizard of Oz. You have a young girl who leaves home and goes to a different fantastical place and then has to find her way back home. As I said, I have a few editions of this. One of them is the Penguin edition, has this story as well as Through the Looking Glass. But I just love this one for the art especially. So if you were interested in getting Alice's Adventure in Wonderland and you like this artwork, I highly recommend this one. And I just have to show you what is underneath the dust jacket is this really cool metallic A. And then you have the spine. And then you have these really cool end papers. They have little bottles, like the Drink Me bottles, the top hat for the Mad Hatter, and then the mushroom. And don't mind the warped page here. As I was saying, how little Fritz likes to mess with things. One of those things he likes to do is knock my books over, and it landed in their water bowl a couple times. So I'm gonna need to get a new copy of this because, like I said, this is one of my favorite all-time stories, and this is my favorite edition of it, so I am definitely gonna have to get a new copy of this. Okay, friends, that will wrap it up for my 9 classic novellas or books under 200 pages that you can read in a day. Have you read any of these? What did you think? Have you added any to your TBR? And my next recommendation video will be 9 sci-fi novellas or books under 200 pages. And then, like I said, the one after that will be the 13 horror books under 200 pages. And thank you all so much for watching. I truly appreciate everyone who watches, likes, comments, subscribes, however you interact with my channel. I truly appreciate it. It means so much. And I wish you happy reading.